Welcome in, everyone. I am Robertson Viar, and welcome to the Box Score Network YouTube channel. If you're not already, please make sure you to subscribe and turn on notifications. With free agency just around the corner and the draft not too far off either, we're going to be starting to post a lot of content on the channel here. So make sure you got subscribed here and also turn on notifications. We just posted a mock draft video a couple of days ago. That's up. So if you're interested in that, we'll be posting a lot more of those here in the coming weeks as well. Ben is not with me today, as he is typically customarily. He is hard at work right now, crunching all the salary cap numbers, watching tape on draft prospects. He's got his GM hat on right now, and he's in full GM mode right now. But he'll be back next week on the Odds on Favorite podcast with me, reacting and analyzing the first wave of free agency, the first couple of days of free agency. Tonight's topic is Washington Commanders pre-free agency. It's going to be probably a bit of a shorter video this evening, but we're just going to be talking about some recent news in terms of Washington Commanders and also some recent league news as well. Some stuff that's happened within the past couple of hours that could very well pertain to Washington's offseason plans, free agency plans, and so forth. So we're going to get started here in just a second. First, I mean, this is nothing new to Washington Commander fans, but we did acquire Deebo Samuel. My reaction on the trade is that I love it. I mean, this is going to open up the offense so much. It's going to take a lot of pressure off of Terry McLaurin, off of Jaden Daniels. Hopefully, he's going to help the run game a little bit. I don't expect Deebo to get a ton of carries, but I expect him to be used more of a gadget guy. For Commander fans that can think back to a few years ago, the way we utilized Curtis Samuel a little bit. I can sort of imagine that is how we're going to attempt to use Debo, maybe a little differently, but it's similar to the way we used Curtis Samuel. I just love what this does for the offense, and it's a low risk, high reward investment. As you can see here, San Francisco, they received a fifth round pick in return uh, for us requiring Deebo Samuel. I, how many fifth round picks are on the roster after a couple of years? So it's really not that bad. My only trepidation is that we don't have a lot of draft capital. If we're trying to make another move here to acquire maybe a Myles Garrett or, some other players that we'll get to here in a few minutes. And also my other slight concern is that the 49ers are taking a $31 million cap hit here, and they're also trying to get a deal done with Brock Purdy as well. I don't know how this is going to affect their cap. I can't imagine that dead cap hit is going to help that situation much, and they're not getting much in return. That is my slight concern, but anyone outside of the 49ers organization that's going to know Debo is Adam Peters, and he felt comfortable making this trade. So I gotta trust the process here with Adam Peters. I gotta trust him. I think most of us do trust what he's doing. As you can see there, I have the 2021 stats listed. That was his best season by far. It's well documented. He was a first team All Pro. He was a Pro Bowl selection. 1,700 total yards, 14 touchdowns. He was just a freak in 2021. He has not been the same really since. Some injuries, some drama, some weight issues. I mean, there's been numerous reasons as to why he hasn't been performing at a top level the past couple of seasons. But honestly, if you take his stats from last year and you were to put last year's Debo on last our team last year, I mean, he would have been our second leading receiver. So I think this is a fantastic move. I don't mind the investment, but this is where things get interesting that I haven't really heard a lot of people talking about is the Debo contract. Okay, so it's a 1 year deal. So I mean, if things don't work out, it's done after the season. Okay, we don't need to re-sign Debo. But his contract has an option bonus that can be exercised to reduce the cap hit for 2025. That decision does need to be made fairly soon, by March 21st. And if the option is exercised, then Samuel's cap hit will be reduced from the 17.5 million to 5.21 million for 2025. Now the rest of that will go to 2026. 12.34 million will be a dead cap hit for 2026. Um, and I have the numbers listed here on the slide here. To me, this is my opinion on it. Again, I haven't heard many people talking about this. Maybe it is well documented. I don't know. I think that we should exercise this option. There's a few reasons. So we have a lot of open spots right now. We do not have a ton of players under contract. And yes, while we do have a large cap number or a lot of open space right now, that's going to get eaten up very quickly by the sheer number of players that we need to sign, along with we're trying to upgrade several positions. So if we go out and just say, for instance, we get a Miles Garrett or a guy that I really want to get is Ronnie Stanley, an offensive tackle. Like we start getting these guys in here at high cap numbers, that cap is going to disappear rather quickly. And also we have to sign other guys to just fill holes, right? And maybe there are more 1 year deals as we did last offseason. There's a lot of holes we need to fill, and we need as much cap room as possible. It sounds like we have a lot, but it's going to disappear rather quickly. So I'm fine with pushing a lot of this money to next season, and hopefully, ideally, if things work out. And I'll be honest, I'm not at all a cap guru. I don't really understand the totality of these financials. I'm not going to even pretend to. But would hope that if you want to do an extension, that you can put some of that 12.3 million into that contract extension. That way it's not as, it wouldn't be a dead cap hit next season. You can kind of incorporate that into the contract. I don't know how it's going to work. I really don't, but I would hope that they can somehow maneuver, manipulate the cap there, so it's not as big of a hit there, or it can be included into the new deal, if there is an extension next offseason. But I would exercise the option, lower his cap number for this year, and acquire as many quality starters as you possibly can in the open market. And we're going to get to that here soon. Um, Jonathan Allen, that's also the news that came out recently. Believe that came out earlier this afternoon, is that Washington is going to release Jonathan Allen if they cannot work out a trade and find a trade partner. I said this in a previous video, um, that we needed to have an uncomfortable conversation about Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen, and as to why the run defense was so terrible in 2024. It, I mean, he's not getting any younger. Would I prefer to keep him on the team? I would, especially if we're trying to go all in and make a push for a championship. That just sounds so crazy to even say as a Washington fan. But if we're trying to get to the Super Bowl here, like legitimately try, we need all hands on deck. I don't know if it's a scheme thing. I don't know if he's not a scheme fit. I don't know if he's just aging poorly and he had the injury this year. But neither him or Payne, even before the injury, um, they just weren't very effective in the run game. Could it also be because we didn't have very good players on the edge? It could be. I mean, I don't know what the issue was with the run game. I just know that when Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne were on the field, not good things weren't happening. Um, that's just the observation that I had and many others had. I would like to keep him on at a lower salary, but it does not sound like he will be returning. And it will be a 16.3 million dollar cap savings if we do trade or release him. It doesn't matter if we do pre-June 1st or post-June 1st. It's going to be the same regardless. The cap hit would still be the same, but we would still save 16.3 million, which again is going to help us have more money accessible for free agency. Um, you know, you can make the argument, well, it's not a very good free agent class, and that's true. It's not the best free agent class. So we wouldn't need a ton of money to go after a ton of high price free agents. But again, I'll restate this. We have a lot of holes right now. We have a lot of open roster spots. We need to fill them. We don't have a ton of draft picks right now, so we have to supplement that with free agent signings. So we need as much I mean, cap space as possible. So some recent league news, franchise tag deadline was, I believe, yesterday or the day before. Fewest players tagged since 1994. Uh, well documented T. Higgins has been tagged. Um, he can be had for probably two first round picks, but I don't think anyone's going to pay that. I know a lot of fans wanted T. Higgins to be in the burgundy and gold next year. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't want it to happen. The draft compensation you had to give up at this point, plus the contract that he's going to get, which is going to be over 30 million annual, it's just not going to be worth it for a guy like T. Higgins. I'm sorry. And then the Chiefs, they tagged offensive lineman Trey Smith. He's getting 23.4 million on the tag. Um, Not a very exciting tag deadline. This one was. The Cowboys, they re-signed Osa Odighizuwa. It was a 4-year extension. I believe it was like $80 million. He was getting 20 million annual. So I know there was a connection. If we release John Allen, he could be a potential replacement. He will not be. He's going to be on the Cowboys for the next several seasons. I wasn't. They can pay him 20 million all they want. I don't think he was necessarily worth it. I mean, he was a good player, but I was not going to be thrilled if we threw a ton of money at Odighizuwa. So I'm kind of glad that he kind of re-signed with the Cowboys there. Um, and then also today we had a lot of recent news that Devonte Adams got released, Tyler Lockett got released, Christian Kirk was released, DK Metcalf requested a trade. As we know, Myles Garrett has also requested a trade. Trey Hendrickson, if he can't get a extension done with Cincinnati, he will want out of Cincinnati. I cannot imagine that Cincinnati is going to give up Trey Hendrickson. Um, a variety of reasons. One, they still have Joe Burrow on the team. They tagged T. Higgins. They're going to try to get something done here with him. And unless someone comes in with some sort of Godfather offer, I really do not think they're going to give him up. Also, news today that Sam Hubbard retired. I don't know if that was expected or not. I don't think he was playing in the league for that long, but he has retired, so that kind of diminishes what they have on the defensive line already. I doubt they want to get rid of Trey Hendrickson. Also, just in the past few hours, Joey Bosa has been released from the Los Angeles Chargers. I did not see that one coming. Maybe the rest of the league did. I haven't been paying attention to cap numbers and so forth. I did look at his numbers before I started recording. He has really fallen off, mainly due to injuries, and so forth. I mean, if I'm a Washington fan, and I am one, but I want Joey Bosa. I want him on the team. Do I want him at top price? No, I do not because of the injuries. But I want him on the team. He'd be the most talented guy that we've had at the edge position in how long? I mean, can you remember a guy as talented as Joey Bosa being on this defensive line? I cannot. Um, I would be fine with signing him to a 1-year prove it deal to, can you stay healthy for an entire season? Can you produce still? I mean, he's only 29, so I mean, I don't want to say he's getting old, but the injuries are going to starting to pile up. And he's almost on the wrong side of 30 now. I would give him a 1-year prove it deal, even a 2-year deal. I would be fine with. Again, it's Joey Bosa. When he was on, he was one of the most unstoppable forces uh, on in the league on the defensive line. Uh, I, we need to add quality players to our defensive line, especially at edge rusher, and when he's right, he's one of the best. So I am more than okay with throwing a little bit of money, not a ton, but a little bit of money at Joey Bosa. Harold, this is also, feel like this kind of flew under the radar because of the whole Myles Garrett thing and Trey Hendrickson going on. But Harold Landry was also given permission to seek a trade. It looks like Tennessee is also potentially moving out of that number one spot in the draft. I don't think anything's set in stone yet, but it seems there was some reports within the past couple of days where the New York Giants are trying to push to get that number one spot in the draft, probably to draft Cam Ward. Um, so if the Titans trade back and they're trying to accumulate picks and they're just going to go kind of full tank mode, I guess, for the season and stick with Will Levis, or maybe they get the second or third best guy in the draft at quarterback. Maybe I don't know. I don't know what they're going to end up doing. Um, if they are trying to acquire picks, you know, trading Harold Landry, maybe even Jeffrey Simmons. If they're going full rebuild here, then a Jeffrey Simmons could also become available, and I would be very interested in that as well. I think that if you don't want to pay the premium that you want for Myles Garrett, that Harold Landry would be a decent consolation prize. He is still a very talented edge rusher. He's very good in the run game. He graded out, I think it was like in the 80s in terms, which I don't know how much stock people put in PFF anymore, but he had like a over 80 grade. So and we need that. We need a edge rusher that can rush the passer and set the edge, and Harold Landry III can do that. Um, if Jeffrey Simmons was available, I would probably prefer him if we are going to trade for somebody. Pairing him with a Daron Payne, maybe can kind of free him up a little bit. I just love Jeffrey Simmons. I think he's been one of the best interior defensive guys outside of Aaron Donald past several seasons. Um, I would love to have him on the team if he is available, but the Titans have given Harold Landry permission to seek a trade. I would be curious to see what the price is. Because has a couple years left on his deal. It's around 17-ish million dollars. I would be very interested to see what we could give up to get them. Um, the Myles Garrett trade, I know this is, he's probably the best defensive player. And these guys don't typically hit the market. It's just a little rich for my blood. You're gonna have to give up two first round picks plus some. That team like Philadelphia, a team like Buffalo, another contending team, if they're desperate enough, they'll throw it at them. I just don't believe that currently our roster is in the best place to handle that kind of trade. You can say, like, are you going to get, a player at the quality of Myles Garrett at at pick 29, which is our first round pick this year, and next year? Well, probably not, but at the same time, I mean, we still have so many holes to fill on this roster. I'm not a fan of the way we operated last year in terms of bringing on a bunch of one-year contracts, because now we're again in this position where we have to sign probably a bunch of one-year contracts. And this isn't the way you build a long-term success for a team. Eventually, you have to start having players and continuity that are on longer deals that you're not paying a lot of money to. You need to build. I mean, some people like building through free agency and trades like this, but I want to see guys on the roster for more than a year. And you do that through the draft. You grow and develop draft picks. Look at Philadelphia. I mean, they have the reason they're able to pay a lot of these top end guys is because they've drafted incredibly well. They don't have to pay a lot of these guys yet because they're on their rookie deals still. So I'm not saying we need to emulate exactly what the Eagles are doing, but we definitely need to look long and hard at what they're doing and see, like, what do we need to do to be like that? And that's investing in the trenches, which a Myles Garrett trade would be investment into the trenches. But again, I just don't know that we're at that point yet. I think we need to, as a fan base, we need to understand where our roster is. We are nowhere close to where Philly is. We're nowhere close to where Detroit is. Um, you could argue we're not even really close to where Minnesota is outside the quarterback position, in terms of where they're at roster wise. San Francisco. our roster ranks kind of somewhere in the middle right now, I would say, in terms of where we are in the NFC overall talent wise, if you exclude the quarterback position. And I just don't think that we make a move like that right now. I'm not going to be upset if we do. I mean, Myles Garrett would be a fantastic addition. Trey Hendrickson would be a fantastic addition. If we even Harold Landry, that's going to upgrade a position tremendously. But just to give up what we would have to give up for Myles Garrett, I just don't think that's the move to do right now. Um, we'll see. We'll see what happens. The Browns have been somewhat adamant about not trading him, but again, we've seen teams in the past say that we're not trading this guy, and then all of a sudden he's traded a couple days later. Um, I listed these receivers here um, for a reason. So we added Deebo Samuel as we talked about earlier. I still want to add more. Now if we resign Noah Brown or De'Ami Brown or Olamide Zaccheaus or Jamison Crowder, that's fine. I'm fine with that move. I'm fine with bringing one of them back, maybe two of them back. However, I still think, especially if we exercise that option on Debo's contract and push a lot of that cap space to next season, that you can still afford one of these guys, a Devontae Adams. I don't know if Tyler Lockett would necessarily fit since we already have Debo. We already kind of have that gadget guy, but yeah, I'm all for adding talented players that Cliff Kingsbury can get to work in the offense. I'm all for that. Christian Kirk has direct ties to Cliff Kingsbury. Kingsbury coached him during his time in Arizona, and he played very, very well. He did not have a great season last year in Jacksonville, and he's probably overall been, I don't want to say disappointment, but he hasn't lived up fully to that contract, that massive contract he signed a few years ago. But you bring him back as not a number one option into this offense where he's more like the third, maybe even fourth option, then that is absolutely fantastic. Again, going to depend on the number and what you bring him in at. But because I don't want to throw a lot of money at Christian Kirk, but you add him to complement Terry and Debo, and this offense is going to be in a place where, hopefully, going to be in a place where we didn't even think was possible. I think that a Christian or wide receiver room of Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, Christian Kirk, maybe I would love to bring back Noah Brown mainly because Jane targeted him so much and he seemed to trust him and he relied on him a lot early on in the season. Noah Brown and Luke McCaffrey, who you would ideally uh, think that he could take the next step um, in the NFL. I mean, that's a good room. That's no longer a weakness. That's a bona fide strength on your team. And you're not really breaking the bank, I don't think, either to have that combination of receivers, and maybe even add one through the draft. Who knows? But again, in the draft, I'd rather focus on offensive line, defensive line. Um, DK Metcalf, that would also be incredibly interesting to me. Again, it's going to depend on the compensation. I don't know that I would be totally for having to give up a day two pick. If we have to give up a day two pick to get Metcalf, I don't know that I'm totally on board with that. If we give up a day three pick, or maybe a day three pick this year, next year, I might be okay with that. I didn't really look at what Metcalf's contract is, but man, could you imagine DK Metcalf on the other opposite Terry? I know there's some people love Metcalf. I know some people are not their biggest fans. I'm somewhere in the middle. I think he's supremely talented. He is a physical force. He's the type of receiver that he is not a receiver that we have had on the team like ever. So to have a guy of his magnitude, just physical magnitude, I mean, I think that would be a fantastic addition as well. Gonna depend on the compensation, obviously. I would totally be on board with it though. Devontae Adams, I don't know if that really makes sense for us. And he's probably one of the best receivers in the NFL, even still at his age. But I don't know, man. Something about Devontae Adams just does not sit right with me. I don't know that you add a guy like that to this team. He's going to want the lion's share of targets, which is fine. You know, he's most receivers do. I'm sure if we traded for DK Metcalf, he'd be whining too if he wasn't getting, his targets every game. But I think it would he would take our offense to a new level. I just don't know personality wise how that I because for some reasons I'm not really big on adding a guy like Stephon Diggs because they're going to want the lion's shares of the targets. They're sort of diva-like wide receivers. Also, how much does he have left in the tank? I don't know. He is over 30 at this point. I think he's 33, 34 years old. I don't know how much he has left in the tank. Um, as a compliment to Terry, I think it would go well. Again, I just don't know fit wise, and I don't know personality wise. Adding a guy like that to the locker room, I don't know if you make a move like that. Um, so there's options out there. There's going to be more guys that are probably going to hit the market here soon. Teams making their final adjustments to the roster. Giving guys chances to seek, employment elsewhere. We'll see what happens here in the coming days before free agency starts. Um, I think we're set up nicely. After this Deebo trade, after we cut John Allen, create that cap space, I think we're set up nicely. We're gonna have money to spend. I just we need to spend it wisely. And again, the focus needs to be on offensive line, defensive line, preferably if you can add a veteran or two in the secondary. Um, Along with re-signing, I still want to re-sign Jeremy Chin. You can go back and listen to or watch the video that me and Ben did a few weeks ago on, the our overall health as a team and heading into free agency and the draft, and see what players that we want to re-sign. Me and him wanted to re-sign, which players we want to let go. Just go back a couple of weeks and you can watch that video and see our opinions on that one. But Jeremy Chin is a guy that I want to re-sign, not to a massive deal, but to a fair deal, a multi-year deal. Because I like him. I think he played very well last year, and I think he can continue to play well in this system. Uh, I think you compound that with another addition at the safety spot. Um, Me and Ben talked about this. It's like you don't create more holes by not re-signing him, but you re-sign him. I don't think he's going to be supremely expensive. I really don't think so. And then you just add to it. You add a third safety that can rotate in and out between him and Chin, or between also Quan Martin. If a guy that could play maybe both sides in the box and deep. So I'd be fine with that. Also at corner, I want to see at least one veteran added to that cornerback room. We desperately need depth um, at all spots on defense, and I'd be fine signing a starter alongside Lattimore and Mikey Sanders still. I'd be fine. I don't know about any of the top guys. Shavarius Ward, I would be fine with bringing him in. He's a very talented cornerback. It's going to depend on the number. He's also 29 years old. I'm not the biggest. We're trying to get younger. We're trying to get faster. We're also trying to get better. Understand, but we're trying to get younger and faster here. I don't know. Bringing in a 29-year-old corner along with Marshawn Lattimore is the best. And you're gonna have to throw a ton of money at him. I don't know if that's the best move. I'm not going to be disappointed if we sign him, but I just don't know if that's the best move here. DJ Reed, he's also a guy that I would consider bringing in potentially. But honestly, as long as we're making our team better here and not doing the moves of old where we're just throwing money, a lot of money or modest money at at middling free agents, it's like, oh, what a steal we got. It's like and it's a guy that like barely registered any kind of stats throughout the season. It's like, well, wow, big deal. Um, I want to go after some of the higher priced guys, but on deals that make sense, and deals that aren't going to hamstring us in the future, cap wise. So, yeah, it's going to be a busy time because of the number of spots that we have. Um, and I'm excited to see what we add. I'm excited to see Adam Peters and Dan Quinn in year two, and seeing what kind of moves they're going to make. Trades, I'm fine if you bring in a guy, but again, how many draft picks are we going to give up? I'm not saying that the draft picks that we give up are going to be better than the guys that we're receiving, but again, we need guys for the long term here. We can't keep doing 1 year deals for these guys. So that's kind of the overall summary that we have here. Resign the guys that we need. Again, if you want to hear about who I wanted to resign, who Ben wanted to resign, go listen to watch the video from a couple weeks ago about Commanders offseason, and you'll kind of get the full picture there. Um, that's probably going to do it for tonight for this episode. Ben, like I said, I'll be back on Odds On Favorite next week with Ben. And make sure you're subscribed to that podcast. Follow Box Score Network at B Score Network on X. And again, if you haven't subscribed already to the YouTube channel, hit subscribe there. Like the video if you liked it. Leave a comment who you want us to bring in. Kind of what your free agency wish list is. I'd love to see that. And if you have any trades, which of these guys that are on the screen here, DK Metcalf, Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson, Harold Landry, or another guy that could potentially be on the trade market, who do you want to trade for? What would you give up for him? That's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you all. Have a good night.